Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Healthcare Tech Show, where I talk about subjects related to healthcare technologies and to help people grow using innovations, moving them to the market. We have a very special guest today, Dr. Manush Saydmohammed. Dr. Manush is an experienced scientist in drug development. He's is my go-to person if I want to talk about both business and basic research. He intersects science, healthcare, and business. He didn't just study the complexities of healthcare and drug development, he also lived them, blending his academic knowledge and real-world experience in drug development. He has an impressive background as with training in executive management and a big understanding in early drug discovery, particularly in the areas that are critical, such as cancer, cardiac injury, and metabolic syndrome. He's at the forefront of innovation in this challenging field, and I truly look forward to discussing how AI can transform drug development. He has a PhD in chemistry from Mumbai, India, and an executive MBA in healthcare from the University of Pittsburgh, where he was an instructor for years. Welcome to the show, Said.
Thank you so much,
Nish.
Nadia, for this wonderful introduction. And
Absolutely.
here and it's a privilege for me. I'm looking forward to this conversation. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Before we get started, I always like to, for our viewers, to put in the chat whether they are watching us live, you can put live, or if you're watching on the recorded session, put recorded. I'd love also to know where you're connecting from, which area, which continent, which country. It's always interesting to me to see how widespread our reach is through this show. Manush, in your own words, how would you say about Manush for somebody who doesn't know you, who's first met you?
Yeah, I'm a biomedical researcher by background, and I have a PhD in biochemistry and then multiple postdoctoral experience in both Japan and US. And while working in Japan, I was working in Uniform Services University and NIH to understand some of the cellular mechanisms on ovarian cancer and identified some of the key mitigation strategies to target ovarian cancer. Then after moving to University of Pittsburgh, I worked on FGF signaling pathways and discovered several new candidates for improving cardiac regeneration. So some of the molecules which we identified is currently being used for improving wound healing in hard to treat wounds. So during this time, I also mastered targeted genome engineering to
Mhm.
make specific genetic modifications to create animal models for disease. So
That's mhm.
yeah,
Go ahead,
so
keep going.
keep going. So yeah, so I I mean most important thing is that I had the opportunity to work and learn from talented group of scientists from multiple countries, and I could publish top-notch journals papers in science, including Nature Communications, Nature Genetics. These are my high point in the career, and so after that, I also got a chance to work with one of the pioneering group in University of Pittsburgh in the development of organ on chips.
Mhm.
This is a very key area. It is under development for precision medicine and improvements in understanding the molecular mechanisms while a disease is progressing. And during COVID time, I had lab shutdown happened. So
Mhm.
in the time, I used that particular time in going for executive MBA program and finished my business program.
Yep.
And that after after that period, I got an experience in managing clinical trials in one of the clinical research organization in Cincinnati, Ohio. So yeah, this is
Awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, for our audience, Manush and I, we overlap in several areas. One of them is our executive business training in healthcare from one of the best programs in the country, if not in the world, for a healthcare focus from the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center and the business school. The second area of overlap for both of us is our interest in developing preclinical models that can complement the better drug development. And that's where NanoNurse was formed to develop tools for preclinical drug development. So we have a lot in common. So I was super excited when Manush agreed to come over. And as you can see, he's been in different aspects of the drug development process, from the early stages to the preclinical to the clinical. So my question, Manush, for the audience who are not familiar about the process of drug development, what are the stages of drug development?
So we can say that multiple stages in the sense that it could be early drug development phase where we will
Mm-hmm.
go from a early discovery phase where we utilize many of the model systems like Drosophila, then two-dimensional plate-like models, zebrafish. So these all models we can use it for early stage drug discovery, the preclinical, I mean the high throughput screening system, so that we can identify molecules. These are lead candidates which can be used for preclinical testing in mouse and monkeys. So
Yeah,
then,
and
then
then when you get to like the closer to humans, can you comment on that as well?
yes, one of the major challenges we face during the preclinical testing is that we have multiple models to animal models to test, but whatever the lead compounds we get it and try it in the clinical trials, they fail it at like phase 2 or phase 3. So to the tune of 90% we fail in clinical stage. So this disconnect is adding to the healthcare cost. Yeah.
And how long does it take for the audience who's not familiar about like the whole process, starting from like the high throughput screening all the way to the FDA approval? How long does that process take typically?
In a typical situation, it is about 7 to 10 years of time in
Oh,
developing drugs. So
mm-hmm.
it was during pre-COVID stage, but during COVID time,
Yeah,
we're able to develop a, a medicine for treating. I mean, for mRNA technology, we could use it to develop uh, and treat for COVID. So that was record pace in 11 months. We could achieve that, but
yeah,
that is a rare situation. In typical space, it is a long process, and when we take more time during each of this phase, like early discovery phase to development phase to preclinical phase to clinical stage, all these phases, when we take more time, that adds cost to the health.
yeah. Hmm. And like in the typical like four stages, which one is the longest? How long? The 7 to 10 years. How? What's the distribution for those
So
time?
early discovery phase is anywhere between 2 to 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Then the late development stage would be the remaining. Like remaining 5 years would be like preclinical phase would cover. Then the second 2 years kind of. Then after that, 2 to 3 years of development is required in the clinical phase.
I see. And in terms of let's pivot a little bit on AI and how it can speed up. As we mentioned, it takes up to 10 years, and the cost last time I checked, it's up to $2.5 billion. to get one compound, one drug through the whole pipeline and FDA approved to the market. Where does AI help in the drug discovery process?
There are several stages where AI could make an impact. Like what? So before that, we should actually look at the challenges in each of this phase. We go through like in different phases, like preclinical phase, we have
Mhm,
complex and confounding biological mechanisms which
mhm,
we have to address, and there are lack of key biomarkers which act as key surrogates for identifying the disease state and
mhm,
predicting clinical outcomes. And as I said before, there is reliable animal models are not available for understanding the mechanistic insights for this.
mhm,
All these challenges are there, right? But when you look at each of these phase in the preclinical and clinical phase,
mhm,
we should look at uh, early stage, early developmental phase. Think about a situation where we are addressing a complex medical condition, like,
yep,
for example, metabolic syndrome.
yep,
So one gene, one target, it doesn't work in that case.
yeah,
So we have to have a like we have to adopt a systems pharmacology approach to
yep,
map genetic signatures to signaling pathways, and also we have to match with drug candidates
mhm,
to address this complex disease. That is where AI can make an impact. And University of Pittsburgh is in the forefront of doing that.
mhm,
Quantitative systems pharmacology at Pitt is addressing that challenge, and a new venture is being developed. It is like in collaboration with multiple institutes, it is being developed. A database is being created, and it is developing as a startup. So, and also we can address to test AI. I mean, use AI to better predict the candidates for testing preclinical phase in a record time.
mhm,
So far, AI used to drug candidates have been identified in 4 months. Think of like early phase we can fast track.
yeah.
That 2 to 5 years we can reduce it to
Mhm.
months. So
That
that is
brings
the
me,
kind.
yeah, that brings me, reminds me of the Deep Mind by Google
Yes.
in collaboration with the European Institute Bioinformatics Institute. It was, I think it was in end of 2022, early 23. They mapped all the 3D structures of all proteins within few months.
Yeah.
And these are critical for drug development because you want to know where the docking place is for your compounds and so on.
So the next thing we could look at is like the clinical stage development. Because
Hmm.
if you think about the cost of drug discovery from lead phase to preclinical to clinical,
Yep,
70% of the cost is in the clinical phase.
yep,
So when you think about the cost, how can we tackle those issues?
hmm,
So we could use generative AI in automating some of the clinical trial stages where repetitive task needs to be done. And there is one challenge in doing that. There is like data privacy and security. This also need to be taken care of while we
yeah,
inculcate AI. So monitoring the patients when they are going through the clinical trial is the next thing.
hmm,
So there is real-time tracking for safety and efficacy of the clinical stage drugs
hmm.
that needs to be done to drive down the cost of this monitoring patients. So you can create virtual nurses or wearable devices. All these things can be useful.
And can you, Manush, can you comment? You tapped into it a little bit, and I want to go a little bit deeper into that. How do you address, patient privacy and bias in AI algorithms while you're using it in a critical area such as drug development or clinical trials?
So that is still in the development. So because of that, I don't want to go into those kind of privacy issues and discuss about that, because even government is right now. Last month, we saw some executive orders from the government in
Mm-hmm.
regulating AI.
Yeah,
So it is in the process of development.
yeah,
It is not being taken care of. But the normal regular task in managing people and managing the organization, and that could be utilized through generative AI, not the uh, key task which that requires data privacy to be taken care of.
yeah, I see. Just a quick note for the audience here. Manush mentioned the executive order that was about 2, 3 weeks ago. I did a newsletter that goes into detail. My newsletter is called AI for Business, Business Edge, and I tackle different aspects of AI. So you can, I'll put it in the chat shortly. And there is a whole issue about the executive order about regulating AI in overall, not just in healthcare. How about the bias? Because we know AI systems are trained on existing data, and if it's not medicated, it can amplify that bias. What comes to mind is some studies I found about AI detecting skin lesions because the systems were trained on white people, they
Yes.
missed the mark on darker skinned people. So, what's your take, or what do you think about, how do we mitigate bias within AI systems for drug development?
So it needs to be adapted for inculcating all the race and all the ethnic groups. For example, based on the color of the skin, it should not matter, and it should not matter if it is male or female or any population. So it should not matter like that. So that is another thing. But and also um, we need to think about not only the external appearance, we also need to think about the molecular signatures of the patients from different population, right? So that changes. There should not be a bias when we take into consideration about using AI for
That's awesome.
yeah.
And so we tapped into the preclinical models. Can you share examples on how are you aware of companies that are using AI in preclinical setting to improve, their drug development process or ways
Right
to improve it?
right now in the preclinical phase, mostly the organ-on-chips technology is in the forefront, because even they are FDA is coming up like strongly in support of using preclinical models, organ-on-chips, for uh, drug development. And one of the report FDA has put out, like 2035, we are going to replace animal models. It's a very ambitious plan, but there is that is the kind of support we have for developing preclinical models.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, so but we have in University of Pittsburgh, we have used preclinical model for creating disease in a type 2 diabetic model. So gradual
Hmm.
progression of the disease we have simulated in an organ-on-chip model.
Yeah.
Then we identified the molecular signatures at each of the stage, and
Hmm.
we have predicted the outcomes, and we could match some of the drug candidates which could treat those conditions. So,
That's awesome.
these are the kind of like um, systems which we could use in complementary settings with the AI. So
Hmm.
that could be beneficial in moving the drugs to
That's
the
great.
next stage.
Yeah, to add to the same, like a use of alternative models in preclinical research. That's what we do at Nanonairs, is to create an organ on chip using easily accessible cells from the nose to recapitulate the respiratory system so we can do some modeling in the preclinical stage before we even get to animals. This way, the stuff that are unlikely to work in humans are ruled out from the pipeline. As you mentioned, most of the cost in drug development is in the clinical stage. Yet, most of the failure is in clinical stage. So my next question, when we are to move from the preclinical, the animal models, into the clinical stage, how can AI help in that transition or even in the clinical stage?
So we should first focus on like a transition, slow transition from a preclinical to clinical. We should have an additional step to improve the success rate, because if we can raise the success rate from this 10% to add another 20%, then the cost of drug development can be significantly mitigated.
And so when you say increase the chances of success, can you describe it, give an example for the audience to understand how could we do that in preclinical stage?
So one of the studies have recently shown that um, by using organ-on-chip models, they could increase their success rate up to 55%. So it is a significant boost for and the confidence for the companies which are taking the lead candidates to bring it to the clinical trials, so that they can avoid this kind of failure.
I see. Yeah. Another example I want to share with the audience here. There were some studies that to show the value of these alternative models in preclinical before you get to the clinical stage. There are studies that were retrospective, meaning they took compounds that failed in clinical trial and they tested them in a blinded study on organ on chip, and seven, they took a total of seven, and five out of the seven would have been ruled out in preclinical stages with organ on chips before you even get to the expensive clinical trial. So there's huge potential there. And just to be fair for the other, methods are out there. It's not only organ on chips. There are other alternative models as well, including 3D printing. There is also organoids and more. Manush, if we move to the future of AI in drug development, where do you see it going in terms of different stages and how it can help? What would be the low hanging fruit for the companies out there that are trying to implement it into their processes?
So AI could be used in many settings, but one of the aspects which we want to focus would be process development. How can we improve the process, improve the efficiency at a lower cost? So that should be the key goal for adopting AI in the drug development process. And if you look at the investment, venture capitalist investment for using AI based companies in the last few years, we could see a significant boost. Like from 2021, we could see a $2 billion investment in AI companies. And that has like significantly boosted beyond $10 billion by now. And 50% of the companies are in the US. And that is a like a proper investment for the future.
That's great. Yeah, I recall once I did the there was a report by McKinsey about the impact of AI in different industries. It was like a 200 page report, and the section in different sectors or industries. The one that I was interested in is in pharmaceuticals. And one number that stood out to me, it can be when implemented in the right places, it can save billions of dollars for pharmaceutical companies, both, as you mentioned, in efficiencies, in new processes, in ruling out the stuff that are unlikely to work. That's huge. Um, so, do you know who few examples who are taking the lead in terms of in pharma, in AI in drug development to share with the audience?
The topmost SaaS companies are in this race now. So right now we have Google, we have, I mean, all the big tech companies in the SaaS space, they are entering into healthcare and adopting AI technology. How can they better predict clinical outcomes? It could be diagnostics, it could be identifying drugs, it could be like different approaches to improve healthcare. So some of the companies are like one of them. I can say that Tempus. It's a company which analyzes clinical and molecular data to create personalized cancer treatment. So there is another one called Techro. It's an Ireland-based company use machine learning-based monitoring for clinical trial progress. There is like Path AI. I cannot go without mentioning that because it's in the forefront for AI-driven diagnostic tool for pathologists to make clinical decisions. So all these companies are racing against time to get in the
Yeah.
forefront of using AI for healthcare improvement.
That's awesome. And can you share some your thoughts about how could AI help in the most expensive stage of drug development, the clinical trials? Can we? I know you've worked in the area in industry as a clinical trial uh, uh, leader. So can you comment how could that? What are the challenges that you face there, and how could AI help overcome or alleviate those challenges?
So in a clinical CRO, there are like many functional areas which we need to work in as a team to make sure that the clinical trials are moving in record pace. So uh, most of the time, like our responsibility is to delegate authority and delegate responsibility to uh, different functional areas, and we would be monitoring the progress. At the same time, we make sure that, I mean, one of the most important aspect of this clinical trial phase is to make sure that patient recruitment is moving forward as we plan. And we also have like the drugs which we wanted to deliver to the patient is in the site. This is administered in a proper manner, and the progress is being tracked in a proper manner. And the medical community, I mean the medical team associated,
Mhm,
safety and also medical monitor,
mhm.
their responsibility would be to make sure that there is no safety event happening,
Yep,
adverse events happening to the patients. And if at all it happens, it should be recorded within 24 hours so that the clinical decisions, the clinical trial, how it needs to move forward can be decided. All these aspects are crucial and would be running against time in making sure that uh, important decisions are being taken uh, like immediately. Therefore, like using AI to continuously tracking the patients and their concern should be one of the priority. So that
I
should be something which AI could like help the so that patient care would also be a concern that can be addressed.
That's awesome. Yeah. What do you think of? I know one problem in clinical trials is recruitment, especially if it is, a rare disease or a population that has some trust issues with the medical, the pharma industry. How could AI or generative AI more specifically improve the communication or recruitment for these trials?
Yeah. So as I said, the patient recruitment is one of the most important aspects which we deal with in the clinical trials.
Mm-hmm.
And the faster we can get it done, and without any serious adverse event, we can achieve that. That is the success of the clinical trial.
Yep.
And in that, like when we know that patients under have like patient heterogeneity because people are different race, color, all the ethnic background, so we also need to take into consideration of all those challenges. So when we administer the same drug to different people from different ethnic background, uh, their response would be different. So the genetic makeup would be different, the metabolic state would be different. All these things are important. So based on that, the medical monitor would be taking decisions on whom to be enrolled and whom to be not enrolled. All those things are important. So AI could help in like segregating the patients and identifying the key candidates for enrolling for clinical trials.
I see. Those are great points. Um, in terms of cost reduction, because that's the promise, it can get things done faster, maybe more accurate, and so on. Can you share examples where it can have the most impact as an area during that drug development? And we can stick with the clinical trial phase because it's the most expensive in the whole process.
Yeah. So can you little more clarify that question?
So the promise of AI is to get things done faster. You can, streamline processes. You gave great examples on how it can be used to improve recruitment. Do you have any data or stories to share on how AI can reduce the cost of the clinical trial recruitment, for example?
For example, like when a patient is being like seen by the doctor, if
Mm-hmm.
it's identifying some of the specific conditions which would be uh, like in it's a background check for getting enrolled in as a clinical trial patient. So
Mm-hmm.
all these things can be automated. Like when
I
a
see.
report comes in the doctor's office, it can be automatically aligned to like some of the clinical trials already being ongoing. So
Yep.
those things can be automatically enrolled by um, using AI. So I also wanted to create a like difference between like how we are addressing uh, the drug development for biopharma versus biologics. For example, if you think about biopharma, the development, although it is the major player in the drug development industry, the biologics is like fast approaching and fast growing its importance. Like
Yeah.
talking about antibodies, gene therapies, and antibody conjugates, all those things are important. So when we think about doing the clinical testing, so the specific framework for clinical trials is little different from what we address with the pharma uh, drugs testing.
Mm-hmm.
So it needs to be tested in uh, there is no clear understanding on how it needs to be tested in multiple species, or
Yep.
it's not feasible to run randomized clinical trials. All those things are needed to be addressed.
I see. Yeah, I'm gonna share, put in the chat the report and for the audience about the impact of AI across many industries. And let's see. Okay, I put that in. So it went to my YouTube by default. And in that, for the pharma, something that really stood out to me, the generative AI can save between 2.6 to 4.5 of annual revenue for pharma and medical product industry. So it's not just pharma, there is also the medical aspect. If you translate that percentage into dollars, it's between 60 and $100 billion annually. And that's mainly in the resource intensive drug discovery and R&D. So R&D investment, because that's like takes a long time. There is potential for there to reduce that cost. You can go to that report I put in the chat and look for the pharma industry. There's also, I think, 10 different sectors, whichever you're interested in. Manoj, in terms of if somebody wants to implement in the drug development AI in their processes, what do you recommend they go about it? What are the key factors they should be aware of?
So when I was thinking about the development of AI in
Mm-hmm,
different sectors and its impact in different sectors, I was thinking about healthcare would be the last one to get
mm-hmm,
impacted by the improvements of AI because of data privacy
mm-hmm,
and uh, those issues. But uh, lastly, we are finding out that even AI can have a significant impact in improving uh, drug development and improving healthcare, even without these security issues can be addressed.
mm-hmm. Yeah. I think there is a huge potential for it in the drug development because it's so costly and it takes so long. And even the talent, like the scientists, the expert that work there, they train for years, and the cost, when you factor in the cost, the fixed costs for salaries and and benefits and all that, if you reduce that time even by small percentages, as I shared, less than 5% reduction resulted in $110 billion saving per year. So there is a huge potential there, and I'm so excited to be in that field within nanoners and look forward to how that goes. And full disclosure, I'm also in the process of incorporating AI so we can improve the predictive models for organ on chips before you get to animals.
Yeah, I had to say one disclaimer that whatever the opinion which I am giving in this talk
Mm-hmm.
is my personal opinion, and
Yeah,
I do not uh, see that it's a opinion of any of the organizations which I work.
mm-hmm. Exactly. Thank you for that disclosure. And in terms of, you also mentioned, the prediction of um, drug reactions. Can you comment on how AI can help with prediction of adverse drug reactions in
So,
methods that use AI versus the traditional methods?
there is like one company I wanted to highlight here is
Mm-hmm.
Babylon Health. So it helps in tracking down. I mean, whatever the patient feeling about a adverse event,
Yep.
he can immediately contact with the doctor within minutes.
Nice.
So that is actually uh, it's really helpful for patients to
Mm-hmm.
take out the time and um, dealing with those situations because
That's
the time is very important for his safety.
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, the way I see like other applications since we tapped into the healthcare part, and again, that spans from my research when I was at the University of Pittsburgh, is the potential for prediction of future events based on markers. So I will share an example. We had a Lancet Respiratory Medicine paper that had 30 markers from the nasal cavity, epigenomic markers that can predict with 90% accuracy which kid will have asthma in the future. Not only that, but 28 out of the 30 markers replicated in two separate populations, African Americans and whites. Our original population was Puerto Ricans. So I see the value of that. Imagine, and I have two kids with asthma. If one of them is flagged that you may need an emergency room visit, one of my kids ended up within 24 hours in the ICU in the hospital for an severe asthma attack. If we know and you flag both for the parents and the physicians that flag this patient, you may need an extra visit with your PCP or with so you kind of take care of them before they are too sick and show up in the emergency room, which is the one of the most expensive units in a hospital. So I think having some sort of flagging system, whether if it's for drug development of compounds, that this is a green, can go into animal testing. This is, an orange, need further evaluation, or this is a red, needs to be ruled out. I think it has huge potential for,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. And if you put yourself, I've done a lot of customer discovery interviews with scientists in preclinical stage, knowing that something you don't need to work on it for 6 months and do the animal testing. It takes a long time, and not just time but money, that you're putting your effort into something that hopefully get closer to helping the people you want to make an impact on.
That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm hopeful that AI can help tremendously in this area. We have a couple of thank yous here. Hello, my friend Tara. Thank you. She's watching us on YouTube. And we also have Adele. Thank you for the unique question about AI in drug development. For the audience, I also shared this report. It's in the comments on my YouTube channel, and that's where you can see the AI for different industries. I also, if you're interested in the regulatory component, you can check out my AI for Business Edge here on. It's a weekly newsletter that I share insights about different aspects of business and AI. So, Manush, where do you see yourself in this whole like different fields? How do you see yourself contributing to these areas?
Yeah, I'm happy to be part of the community in helping out and addressing wherever the AI like could be used in reducing the drug development time,
Mm-hmm.
and most importantly, reducing the cost in developing safe and effective medicine to help people saving lives. So that's the goal. So
That is,
I wanted to be part of that goal,
mhm.
and yeah, I would be happy doing that.
that is That is awesome. You'll be very excited about my upcoming community for business leaders who are using AI for to grow their business. It's coming up January 3rd is opening for the public. So I'm working with a few founding members. The idea is to there's so much information out there, it can be overwhelming, is to use both my training in research and in business to filter out the noise and find out what are the tools and strategies that will give business leaders better return on their investment, and investment meaning not their money, because the most investment that's costly to business leaders, especially if they are in C-level positions, is their time. So hopefully you're welcome to be part of that community. And also for my followers or people watching this on a recorded session, I can vet that has a unique skill set that spans both research and business training in the multiple stages of drug development. And I know the most expensive um, thing for businesses is finding the right talent. So not just finding the right talent, but find, nurture, and retain the right talent. And that's key because we've seen I'm sure you've seen like the saga for OpenAI over the past few weeks, with all that turmoil of their CEO being fired and so on. So, in digging deep about that, I looked into why was that? What is there? It was almost like a business strategy. Remember when we did the strategy and we'd go into and analyze companies and stuff like that. So I did that for OpenAI to see, where are they going? What drives them from both, their history, their board, their mission, their structure, even the way how their company is structured can impact how they're moving forward. And what stood out to me when analyzing them is that they moved from a nonprofit to a capped for profit so they can afford finding and retaining the right talent. That's how important talent is. And if you're listening to this and you have decision power, decision making abilities, and you are in the areas of drug development or R&D within in the US, especially in the Pittsburgh area, they say whoever lives in Pittsburgh goes back to Pittsburgh. And it's so true. There's magic about Pittsburgh. So if you're listening to this and you know of somebody or who has something within that area that can benefit from Manush expertise, please feel free to reach out either to me or to Manush directly.
Thank you so much, Nadia. I'm happy to work with people who are interested in connecting and working on this space. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Awesome,
thank you
awesome.
so much for this time.
So, any advice for a lot of people who listen also to my show are aspiring entrepreneurs or aspiring scientists? Any advice for you would give yourself, like 10, 15 years ago, that you can share? You're willing to share with the audience.
Yeah, so identifying the why is the most important thing.
Hmm.
And if you know your why and working towards that goal, that should be the most rewarding part of your career.
That's
And
awesome.
for me, uh, one of the companies which I work for, the the and uh, mission for the company is like people, purpose, and passion.
Hmm. Three Ps.
So work for the benefit of the people with a passion and purpose.
Hmm.
That is what is important.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So let me switch roles here. What is your big why, Manoj?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like when I'm aligning with the why of the company, that is when I look forward to working with them.
That's awesome. That's great. And for any other advice you want to share with the audience, or something that you wish I asked you but I didn't?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to the next adventure, whatever it comes. Yeah, so I'm open to working with the community in whatever way I can help in moving forward the drug development space. I'll be happy to do.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's been a pleasure having you here, Manoush. For the audience, to recap, this session was about drug development in the age of AI. What we covered is the different stages of drug development. We also looked for the challenges in drug development and how AI can help with that, both in the early stages where the high throughput screening to preclinical to the development stage to preclinical stages, how to rule out or increase the predictability of success in those stages to clinical trials, where how it could improve processes, how it can be given feedback or adverse effect directly to patient in record time. We also shared, Manu shared few examples that you can dig deeper into. If you're interested in the AI impact on different industries, we share a report by McKinsey. And more importantly, um, how Manush's unique experience spanning, both research, developing organ on chips, as well as clinical trials in drug development is, and how relevant it is for potential, leaders who can benefit from that. Any final words, Manush, before we close?
Thank you, Nadia, for this opportunity, and it was a pleasure talking with you. And I would be looking forward to interacting with the community which you have built. It is an amazing platform to
Thank you.
have a conversation, and it was a nice time with for having this uh, today.
Sure,
Thank you.
absolutely. If you're not connected to Manoush, check him out on LinkedIn and send him a connection request. He's open to connecting with leaders in the pharma and the medtech and drug development industry. And before we wrap up, if you want to stay up to date with the AI and business, feel free to subscribe to my AI Business Edge newsletter. You'll find a link on my profile on LinkedIn. And as well, you can also scan the barcode on my LinkedIn profile or type this link here into your browser. You can read few issues before you decide if it's worth your time, but I'm positive it is. It's backed by a PhD, executive MBA, and 15 years of experience. So that's my way of giving back to the community. It's free of charge. So feel free to subscribe and share it with your network. And with that, thank you so much, Manush, for being with us today. And I encourage you all to connect and follow Manush on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much, Nadia, for the time.
Absolutely. Bye, everybody.